Now, I'd like to move on to the things that I've learned working with children with autism over these years. The one thing, and this is in no particular order of importance, but the one thing that I found is actually one of the most important things, was that everything must be celebrated. Celebrate everything, no matter how small. You see, in some cases, we want to focus on big successes and big improvements, that we miss the little things. We miss that thing about this child, that when he came, he couldn't sit. He couldn't sit in a table. He walked around constantly. We found certain things uncomfortable. But now, 3 months, 6 months down the line, he's sitting and he's attending. That might be unimportant for you.
But come on,
but that is very important, and I celebrate it as if this I won the lotto. You understand? So that's, for me, that is something that's really very important.
For life too,
exactly. Look for the small things, because those small victories eventually lead to big victories,
of course,
which you will
even appreciate, because
even more.
But
then the other thing is that the parent is the expert on their child with autism. Listen to what the parent says, and it's important also to develop relationships with the parents. Don't shut the parents out. Include the parents. I want to just tell you a little, and along the way I'll be giving you some stories. So I had a boy, and it was a grade 4 class that I was teaching. I think it was 2013, and his mum was a teacher who had been boarded a few years ago, and she said to me, "Mrs. Usher, I can help you with my son."
Like medically boarded?
Yes, she was medically boarded. So I said, sure. And she came forward with different ways of, this is how he learns. If you want to teach him this concept in mathematics, addition, for example, this is what you do. This is how you can get through to him. And then when it was time for assessments, she said, let me know what the broad topics are. She didn't ask for the paper, but let me know what the broad topics are. I will source pictures for you, because the other thing about children with autism, visual over verbal.
Nice.
That's another buzz phrase. Visual over verbal. They're not verbal. You're going to come into that classroom with a child with autism, and you're going to talk your head off. And you might as well have been at home sleeping in your bed.
Wow.
If you're not going to present them with some kind of visual or some image or whatever. So that visual, so Mom was actually offering to assist me to find pictures so that I can create something specifically for him.
That child,
And I was able to create things for him together with his mother.
Wow.
Parents is the expert. Develop relationships with the parents. Never ever shut the parents out. Okay? Now, not being able to talk doesn't mean that I can't communicate. You see, people and sadly, even some of our parents have said, no, she doesn't know. She can't talk, or he can't talk. So no, and I'll be very quick to correct them. That doesn't mean that she can't communicate. Okay, she cannot say, I want juice. But what does she do? She pulls you to the fridge. She pulls you to the fridge, or she goes to the fridge, opens the fridge, takes out the juice, or points to the juice. Communication, speech, yes, is the highest form of communication, but it's not the only form of communication.
I know some households, if you're a kid and you're grabbing things from the fridge, you'll get into serious trouble.
Exactly. So listen, but you don't have to be listening to words. You don't have to be listening to any narrative or anything that's verbal. Listen with your eyes. Listen with your eyes. Do you understand? Not just with your ears. Okay. And then there's something that in autism that we call generalization. Generalization and repetition. I want to say something firstly about generalization. So when we teach, we generalize skills and we also generalize concepts. So I'll give you an example. Let's just say if I want to teach a lesson in mathematics on quarters, I might start the lesson by teaching with the pizza. I might bring a pizza to school and cut that pizza in 4, right? Then the next time I do the lesson, I might give the children their own little mini pizza and let them cut. Or then I might use paper. Or I might use an orange. So I'm teaching the same lesson. I might teach that concept of quarters in 6 different lessons.
Wow.
Exactly. But I need my child to know that when I know about quarters, it doesn't just apply to a pizza.
Right.
It doesn't just apply to quarters of oranges. Let's talk about generalizing a skill. I worked with learners in grade R for many years. So let's think about the skill of writing with the pencil. You don't know how much we do with preparing those children. So we call this the pincer grip. So it's like this is the pincer grip. And so it takes so long to get them so that we strengthening the shoulder, we strengthening the muscles of the forearm, and we're just strengthening them in that time before we put the pencil in their hand.
Wow.
And so we do a whole lot, months and months and months of preparation. And it might start off just with taking this, because you first strengthen the index finger, right? So I strengthen. How do I strengthen the index finger? I get him or her to poke Play-Doh.
Right.
I get them to roll the Play-Doh into like a long, what we call a long snake. They poke the Play-Doh snake. They roll it into a ball. They poke the Play-Doh ball. We get them to flick maybe a ball, like a ping pong ball, across the table.
Right.
Then we get them to take small balls of Play-Doh, roll it in between these first 2 fingers and their thumb. Okay? So we do all those things. It's the same thing. It's we actually doing the same strengthening that we are doing, but by generalizing it and doing it over and over and over again. So when I'm putting the pencil in his hand, he's prepared to. He's prepared.
Familiar.
Exactly. And I'm not saying we don't put the pencil until, but then I'm just saying we do it over and over again. The other thing we do, for example, with the pincer grip is we don't just give them a pencil first. We give them a short, fat crayon.
Right.
So now if I give you a crayon this size, you have to hold it like this.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So that's generalization. Very, very, very important. Okay, teach the same concept or the same skill in different ways. Repetition is important. Now, I want to talk about combining this with celebrating the small successes, celebrating the small things, and also with repetition. Years ago, in fact, it was my very first year of teaching learners with autism. I had a little boy who absolutely wonderful, beautiful boy. And I taught them the story of the very hungry caterpillar. And so the very hungry caterpillar on Monday, he ate 1 apple. So this is the Makaton sign for apple. So he ate 1 apple. This boy that I had in my class had absolutely no speech, not even a sound.
Wow.
Some learners come to us and they actually make a sound. They'll say ah, or they'll say some, even if it's a guttural sound or something. This child made not a sound.
Wow.
For the whole of that year, 6 months, we repeated the story of the very hungry caterpillar, and it came back, and we did some other story. Then it came, and I did that one again, and I did the signs. After the June holiday, this boy came to me. It wasn't even story time. He looked at me, and with the most beautiful eye contact, he looked and he said, "Apple."
Wow.
Was he saying apple? No. Was he doing the sign? Yes. But he was saying apple.
Right.
He wasn't saying it the way I'm saying
Yes.
it, but he was saying
Right.
apple. Do you
That must have
understand?
been so exciting.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, I wanted to hug him. And he just did it and he walked away. And I was like, oh yes, I called the therapist and I told everybody, teachers, assistants.
Anyone willing to listen?
Exactly.
Listen.
This is what my boy did and this is what he said. He can say apple.
Yeah.
So that repetition is absolutely important. So the other thing is that you have to adapt your teaching to the child's learning style. Now I want to say something about learning styles. You know, I read somewhere years ago that learning styles are actually set in different centers of the brain.
Wow.
So if you have a tactile learning style, or if you have a visual learning style, or an auditory learning style, or whatever kinesthetic or whatever they call it learning style, and I am teaching you with a different learning style, I'm missing it. I'm totally missing it.
Wow.
So if this child has a visual learning style, which most children with autism have, and I am teaching them by speaking only and not giving them the visuals and pictures or some kind of videos or something, I'm missing it.
Wow.
I'm not making the mark. Absolutely. So be prepared to adapt what you are doing to accommodate their learning style. You adapt their teaching. When I'm working with children with autism, it's very little about me.
Right.
Very little. And I have to look at and think about what's their learning style. And it might differ even from one child to the next.
Yes. Imagine.
And then that's why when I'm teaching, I might say, okay, let's get up. If I'm teaching grade on, let's just say, let's get up and clap the months of the year or stamp the months of because there are some children who are those learners that want to move, and that's the way they
like to be
they learn. Exactly. Then don't take anything for granted. You see, I am sitting here, I'm able to speak, I'm able to make eye contact. I can say to David when I see him, the next time, David, please say hi to Thuli. The child that is pre-verbal, I'm not saying to them, say hi to your mom.
Right.
They're not able to. They're not able to understand that. So don't take things for granted that because I can do it, you can do it.
Right.
It's not that. Absolutely not that. So there's no such thing as a typical day. A lot of the days are fine and whatever, but there are days where a child might come and you have to respond to how the behavior that child is coming with. And you have to think on your feet and say, I can't just continue. Yes, bar the fact that I said routine and structure and whatever, but I'm responding now to what is happening to me right in front of my eyes right now. I need to say, okay, I need to put this in place and I need to replace whatever I thought I could do now with that. And sometimes it might be something simple like we're supposed to be doing our fine motor activity or we're supposed to be doing a mathematics activity. But the children are requesting maybe, can we play with the ball? And there's so much, can we play with the ball? Let's go play with the ball.
Right.
Let's go play with the ball.
Yeah.
So don't be too rigid in yourself as well. So there's that typical day that you normally get, it happens, but it's not, it's not always the case, okay? You see, that's the thing with autism. As I said, it's the child with autism, and that's exactly what they are, a child. And if you have a 7-year-old neurotypical child at a mainstream school, or a 9 or 10-year-old neurotypical child at a mainstream school, you are very keen to bring that child to their full potential. Why should it be different for the child with autism? You see, so all children, whether it's a child with autism or whether it's a neurotypical child, they all need to be brought to their full potential. You need to bring out in them the best that you can. Then there's always hope, people. You know, I've worked with people that are very negative. And you know, I say to the people that work with me, I cancel that immediately. You say something negative, and I will say, I actually have said this, you know what, I prefer to surround myself with more positive people. Or if a person says something that's negative, I will say, positive, can you speak positive?
Good.
Because there's a lot of prophets of doom.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of naysayers and so on. But there's always hope. And it's up to us as the adults who work with the children with autism to understand where that hope is going to come from. And to make sure that that child does actually receive that support so that they can be successful and be victorious, right? So that positivity, that having a good attitude, and then you absolutely have to have a sense of humor. You're not going to be able to get through your time or get through your day by being too stiff and too rigid and not seeing the funny around what is going on. And that's how we go through, and that's a coping mechanism for us. The other thing that I found from the very first time I worked with children with autism, have a debriefing partner. Have somebody, because it's very frustrating. I want to say that my very first day in a class of children with autism, I came home and I made an entry into my diary that said, nothing that I've ever done in all my years of teaching could have prepared me for today.
Wow.
And I had been teaching for over 30 years. By the time, well, no, I lie. It was close on to 22 years by the time I started working with learners with autism. And I was like, no, nothing. I've worked in a non-profit. I've worked, but this, nothing could have prepared me for this. And so I had the therapist who works with us, wonderful occupational therapist. She's my good friend now, and she and I would bounce things off of each other. And I would just say to her, oh my goodness, so and so, I really tested my patience. Or so and so, I had to walk out because and just leave the teacher assistant because. And she would come to me and say the same thing. Oh, in the therapy session, I got nothing from this child today. And really, I just got up and walked outside onto the field with him, or whatever the case is. So you absolutely need a debriefing partner, because it does get tough. It gets absolutely tough. And if you are not going to have somebody to say, please, I need to just share this with you, or just like, oh my goodness, without judgment.
Yes.
Then it's not going to be easy for you.
Yeah.
But then that sense of humor, it's going to carry you.
It helps.
Because you're going to laugh, and it's going to help you. So autism is not an illness. It's not a sickness. It's lifelong. It's a spectrum disorder. Now, I'd like to just give a quote from Alexis. I'm not sure if I'm saying the name correctly. Alexis Weinman. She was Miss Montana in 2012, and she said, "We cannot cure what is not a sickness, but we can begin to understand autism and help those with autism to unlock the potential that lies within all of us." And I like that, because she's not saying all of them, but we're unlocking, because we all have potential that lies within us.
Wow.
Thank you. I hope I've helped somebody, and that's just been my journey. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, Thuli. Thank you so much.
Sure.
We learned a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah, I hope you guys learned a lot as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It was nice just to kind of soak it in, really.
Yeah.
Right,
you know?
yes.
Yeah, no, Joey, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay, guys, we will see you next week for Fortnite Fix.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed having Joey again. We definitely did.
Exactly.
Cool, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.